Hello, hello, hello. All right. Hello, 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 everyone. Come on in, come on in. Tag your friends, share with your friends, tag your friend, share with your friend. So we're going to do something a little bit different for this afternoon pop-up live. And one of the things that I appreciate is that when I shared about my business losses and things that we've gone through in our business this year, it got a great response, really good feedback. So I was like, okay, we've had some wins this year too. And I want to talk to you guys a little bit about sales and the sales processes that we use and a few sales terms that I want to share with you guys. So this is going to be that. This is going to be that. We're going to do a sales masterclass, pop-up, whiteboard, and queue. And if you have questions, drop them in the chat, or if you're on Instagram, put them in the Q&A box so that I can get your questions there. Share this out, tag a friend who needs this. We want to make sure that people know what's going on, what's happening, since this is very different than anything that I've done before in this setting, live like this. So let me start off by introducing myself while I'm waiting for you guys to share it out and get folks on here. My name is Ashley Kirkwood. I am the founder of a law firm called Mobile General Counsel. I'm also the owner of a company called Speak Your Way to Cash, where I teach speakers how to land paid speaking engagements. I have negotiated and landed millions of dollars in speaking and licensing deals on behalf of myself and my clients. I'm also the host of an event that's coming up soon called Speak Your Way to Cash Live. That particular event is taking place November 4th through the 6th. And I believe we're only 15 days out from ticket sales ending. 15 days out from ticket sales ending. So the purpose of this live is to talk about sales at a general level, whether you're a speaker, an entrepreneur, a thought leader, someone who has to sell services to someone else. This is where you want to be. And we're going to talk about the principles that I've used to grow my business very quickly and principles that I teach some of my private clients. Also, we're going to go through some material that is in this handy dandy Speak Your Way to Cash book, which is now available. Oh, sorry, Chris. Which is now available for pre-order. We actually have Chris live with us on the recording. So if you're joining via Instagram, you're going to get a certain experience. But if you want the best viewing experience, watch this video on Facebook. Far easier to see over there. All right. If you're ready, drop ready in the chat. If you're ready, drop ready in the chat. Do not be afraid to talk back to me today. So here's what I want to discuss today. 3 big things. Sales process, the way that you get sales in the door. Sales positioning, meaning how you position yourself in the marketplace, and then pricing and negotiation. It should be it's an imaginary negotiation here. Pricing and negotiation, okay? And the reason I want to have this discussion today with you all live is because what I've seen is that sometimes people feel like they don't know how to set their pricing. So they're always asking other people, well, how do I price and what do I do? And one of the things that we're going to discuss at Speak Your Way to Cash Live is pricing pathology, how to set your prices. We have an entire module on this because really you are the one that needs to set your prices. I don't want you blaming your coach for your prices being too low or too high. I don't want you blaming anyone else. Now, it's great to get feedback and advice on that, especially if you're in a brand new field. However, at the end of the day, you're the one who has to set the pricing. And why is that important? Because you're the one who has to do the sales positioning. Unless you have a sales team, then they do the sales positioning. But either way, it's really important for you to be a part of this pricing process. So, sales process, basics. Okay, let's go back to the basics. Every single last one of you has a sales process already. Whether it is well documented is a whole nother thing. Whether it is well documented is an entirely different thing. It's an entirely different beast. But your sales process is simply how people come to know who you are. Like it's their journey from I don't know who you are all the way to this is a paying customer. Now, before we go any further, one of the things that I'm going to use for this is it's a diagram in Speak Your Way to Cash, the book. It's on page 214. I'm going to show it to you guys if I can. And my book I have a federal copyright on my book, so don't try nothing shady. Don't try nothing shady because we do protect our IP over here, okay? I have a really good firm that loves to protect my stuff. Shout out to Mobile General Counsel. So I don't know, Chris, did you get it? Did they get that? You can get a little closer. All right. So we have a customer map that we do with our clients, that we do with our customers, and all of my my clients go through my customer map. Now, each and every one of you already has a sales process. Whether it's documented, whether it's good, whether it's working, that's something else. But however your client goes from I don't know who you are to buying from you will be a part of your sales process. The first thing on this customer map is cold emailing. Cold emailing. Now, let me see how many points there is. My customer map has 13 points. There are typically 13 steps that people go through before, and it varies, right? But for purpose of this conversation, for most people, there's about 13 steps they go through on my customer journey. So it's not just, it doesn't just end with the sale. And I'm going to tell you what they are right now. Number one, cold emailing. Number two, depending on the service, there's a call about the services. Number three, we send a proposal or some other email dictating what the pricing will be based on what the client needs. Number four, there may be a second call about the proposal. This does not always happen based on the business they're going through, but there may be, if it's a large contract, a second call about the proposal. Now, I'm going to stop here and we'll get to the rest of them, but those are the first four. Depending on your business model, right? Like if most of your services, if you're a service provider, if most of your services are under, like, let's say 5,000, just for sake of conversation, if they're under $5,000, for me, there's not typically too many calls about that. There are some exceptions. There are definitely some exceptions, but typically not too many calls about that. So that first call may happen, but the second call won't. When I'm doing corporate deals, dealing with corporate clients, and they're signing larger contracts, typically we have a call. During that call, we talk generally about our average contract size, but then we have a follow-up call where it's like, all right, I've sent you the proposal. What are your thoughts on it? What was your budget? So that's where that second call comes into place. For me, the way I approach my business, the less money the service costs, the less interaction prior to a purchasing decision I have with the customer. For instance, you want to buy my book? You buy the book. We ain't having no call about the price of the book. You know what I mean? We're not going to go through all of that for a book. It doesn't make any sense. And I would hope y'all ain't having calls about stuff under $100, right? Unless there's a process to it or there's some type of branding for it, whatever. But for the most part, we ain't talking about this one. You just gonna have to spend that $30 or whatever it is, right? So there's that. But when the packages get higher, typically there's a conversation. And the reason there's a conversation, and this is an important piece that Chris and I talked about, is because there sometimes can be wiggle room on services, not legal services, just to be clear. I don't want any of y'all messaging me like, oh, you said there's wiggle room on. No, there's not. But when we do consulting services for large corporations and they're signing large contracts at, like, we're talking, you're signing a six-figure contract, there's some royalty that happens, there's some licensing that happens. If they want to sign a multi-year contract with me or a long-term contract, then there may be opportunity for me to, you know, go give them preferred pricing on some services. Now, here's what I need to make very clear before we even go any further on this map, because I already hear some of y'all in your heads. Like, but wait, I thought, you know, we're never supposed to negotiate our prices. We got to get paid our rate. And I thought that blah, 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 blah. Look, you have to know your profit margins. You have to know a few different numbers. We're just going to go here now. I'm trying to think of how I can do it. You need to know a few different numbers. Here's what we're going to do. Let's talk about pricing first, and then we'll go back through the sales process, okay? So your pricing. Let's say, I'm going to use speaking because I do a lot of speaking coaching. Let's say the cost that you send a client in a proposal for a keynote speech is $15,000. This is the cost of you delivering a keynote speech. Let's assume that. If you're with me, drop a yes in the comments. If you're with me, drop a yes in the comments. Let's assume this is the cost you send over in a proposal, $15,000 for a keynote speech, okay? And you tell the client this keynote speech includes, 1 hour it's a less than up to an hour for keynote speaking services, up to an hour for keynote speaking services. But the client says, well, our budget is $10,000. All we have is $10,000. Now, this is their counter. But before you send a client a price, when it comes to speaking and consulting, which is a particular field where clients are used to, sometimes people have flat rates. There is zero wiggle room on the price. But other times, it is common in the field for people to have a discussion or a negotiation about their speaking services and fees. This rate can scale up based on what the client needs, but sometimes some service providers are willing to scale this rate down based on what the client needs. This is like a negotiation. So I recommend before people go into a negotiation, they have two numbers: their rate, like this is their rate, and then they have their GOOBN, get out of bed number. Your get out of bed number is like the lowest amount that you would ever be willing to accept for the services that you're selling. And this is like, if they offer me, so when you enter a negotiation, because again, when you're selling speaking services, consulting services to large corporations, typically you have your rates, but sometimes the company may come back and say, hey, we don't have the budget for that. We do have $10,000. We would love to work with you. At that point, you have to decide, is $10,000 below your get out of bed number? This is just the number, like I'm not taking less than that. Because if I take less than this, it's not worth it to me. And whatever this number is for you, it will vary based on the stage in your business that you're in. You may be at a stage in your business where it's like, I could do 10K, but what I always recommend whenever you're negotiating with a corporation, you're negotiating for your services fees in the event that you negotiate, because it is and the only time you would really engage in a negotiation, or the only time, I'll talk for myself, the only time I engage in a negotiation is when there is a long-term client potential with a particular organization that I want a relationship with. We don't engage in negotiations for like with any and everybody. That doesn't happen. And we're talking about large corporate contracts. We are not talking about your one-off services prices. So you got your rate, the rate that you propose to them, and your get out of bed number. Now, strategically, you may want to go up on the proposal rate, whatever that is. Like, because you should assume that people have a number in mind that they want to spend, and they have a number that they'll go above. They have a number that they'll go beneath, right? And if your number is way below what they want to spend, when you give your rate, they're just going to be like, oh yeah, thank you, we're going to accept this right away. Sometimes they may still haggle because they have budgets that they have to consider. And what you have to understand about companies is there's money earmarked for certain things. So oftentimes when you come into the picture, they've already decided there's a certain amount of money they're going to spend on that event or on your services or on training their employees. So you need to have your rate, and then you have your get out of bed number. Okay. So if they counter at 10K, you have to determine, is this 10K above the get out of bed number or is it below it? There are certain considerations you need to think about when setting your pricing, when negotiating on behalf of yourself. And a few of them are this. One, is this a long-term opportunity or not? Two, do I want the client relationship or not? Three, if I say yes to the rate they're proposing, will I be upset at providing that rate again a second or third time? Because more often than not, when you give someone a particular rate, it is very difficult for them to come up in the future. So you need to be accepting rates based on what you want in the future, not necessarily like what you have now. Okay? Good. Thank you guys for tagging people in here. All right. So now we got our rate. You have to set your get out of bed number based on your expenses and the profit margins that you aspire to. And then you'll get a counter offer from them. A lot of times I see people, they set a rate, the client says no, and they let the client walk away. And there may be a reason to do that. But what I always suggest is to have a dialogue about it if the contract value is large enough or the contract potential is large enough. So I'll take this example, $15,000 keynote. That's not On its own, $15,000 is not going to drastically change the trajectory of your business. It's just not. However, with the way that we teach doing engaging with corporations, this may just be a pricey opt-in. If you go into a company with a keynote or a workshop and it's priced $15,000 to $25,000, and then you rock it, you crush it, you do amazingly well, then you have a follow-up conversation with them to deepen the relationship. Okay? So this isn't the be-all, end-all. A lot of times when you're used to serving consumers, you look at sales with large corporations the same way, and it's not the same way, because the longevity of the relationship is typically deeper the larger the organization is. Why is that? Well, the bigger the organization, presumably, the more employees they have, presumably, the more people are involved in decisions, the more problems present themselves. Not a good or bad thing, it's just factual. And the more complex my business grew, the more opportunities people had to sell to me because I had more problems that needed to be solved. It is the same, like your business, my business, we're the same. You think about Amazon and Facebook and all of these other entities and larger tech companies specifically, they all started with small employees. That grew. As it grew, what happens? You get departments. What happens when you get departments? Well, you have to hire for those departments. What happens when you hire for those departments? New problems present themselves because you're starting from the ground up. You have to develop processes. You have to develop people. You have to develop leadership skills. So more people, more problems to solve, which means more of an opportunity for you to help them solve them. Okay? If this is making sense, just drop "make sense" in the chat. Now, if you're enjoying this, you're liking this, you're like, this is good. I wasn't expecting this on this afternoon. Then you need to get your ticket to Speak Your Way to Cash Live. Okay? Very simple. Very simple. Even for negotiating salaries. Yep. Definitely true. So you need to get your ticket to Speak Your Way to Cash Live. SpeakYourWayToCash.com/event. Go get your ticket. We have 15 days left until ticket sales in. So when it comes to pricing, I'm hoping that this was helpful just to show you that sometimes you set your price, right? But when you give that price to a large organization, there may be a negotiation. That's normal. That's not abnormal. Okay? Now, like if you come to Mobile General Counsel and you're like, what's the cost of a trademark? It's firm. If you're like, well, we'd like to, get it for about $1,500 less. No, is the answer. It's very simple. You know what I mean? And the same is true because we have no haggle pricing at Mobile General Counsel. Okay. So what you need to figure out is like when I'm presenting my prices to these organizations, are these prices firm? Or are these prices flexible based on the opportunity? And let me tell you something. Do not let people fool you. There are some opportunities where you're going to be flexible with your pricing to get the opportunity. But big but here, okay? You can't make that decision out of fear. It has to be like a rational decision. And it really needs to be an organization that actually has the potential to help you out. Okay. So let's get back to the customer map thing that we were just dealing with here. So I told you guys there's 13 data points on my customer map. The first part was like cold email, but it could also be social media. So how do you start the client journey? How do people learn to know about you? Because the beginning point of any customer's relationship with you, there's always an entryway. There's some way that they learn who you are, what you do, how you do it. And there are, let's see how many we talk about in the book. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We talk about 7 in the book. We talk about 7. I think, can you all still hear me on Instagram? I got a call from Smith AI, so it may mess up the audio. Can you see if Instagram can hear me? Okay. If not, we'll come back and we'll just upload the whole video later. All right. So there are 6 ways that we talk about selling in the book. Just put on. Okay. I hope you all can hear me. Drop a yes if you can hear me on Instagram. Can you all hear me on Instagram? Drop a yes. All right. I'm going to read them off and we're not going to talk about all of them. 1 will be, put up your volume, babe, and see if you can hear it. Okay. 1 will be, I'll just cut out. Okay, 6 ways to sell. Cold emailing, referrals and recommendation, cold calling. There's other campaigns. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's a lot of good stuff in here. We're going to talk about 2. We're going to talk about 2. We're going to talk about 2 of the ways here. Welcome back. Welcome back. Tag your friends. Tag your friends. We had a little interruption. We're going to talk about 2. We're going to talk about 2 entry points. Now, there are 2 big ways. There are 2 big ways that people will come into your sphere. And tag your entrepreneur friends, because typically I don't even, I hear you. Great. Thank you, Tamika. There are 2 big ways that people typically get leads into their business. And in the Speak Your Way to Cash book, we talk about a whole lot more of them, but we're going to go through 2 big ways. Because I can't be on here all day. What is it, 324? All right, cool. And this is a pop-up. I don't even know if I'm going to keep this up. I don't know. Y'all let me know. Cold and content. Cold and content. So this is how I'm breaking these down for purposes of keeping it really simple. But like you may have, I should have written this differently. You may have these are like the 2 ways people may come into contact with you, or you would come in contact with them. So cold, you could like directly reach out to people. You could directly reach out to people. You could email them. You could DM them. You could call them, depending on if you have their number, or you can write content. You can write content. You can write content for yourself. So like my Instagram posts is a big thing, or you can write content for others. So, you know, you pitch yourself to write for some big publication. They already have a platform. You just provide the content. So there's a variety of different ways that you can attract people. If it's cold, if you're directly reaching out to them and you're like, hey, I'm so-and-so, give me a piece of your time. This is definitely a way you can get clients, and it still works. The close rate is between 2 and 20%, 20 on the higher end, highest end. Typically, it's like 2 to 3%. If someone does not know you from Adam, I don't know if that saying is still relevant, but I still use it. If someone literally does not know you from Adam and you just email them out the blue and there's no relationship, you can expect around a 2 to 3% rate that, like, of all the people that you do that to, 2 to 3% of those people will actually convert and become clients. But then you have like direct messaging. Now there's a lot of strategies here. You could direct message your actual followers. You could direct message people you don't know and inquire about their lives or their business or introduce them to you. Or you can call people. You can call people. I don't know how this works because I don't cold call people. Back in the day, okay, when your girl was doing inside sales, I made over 20,000 cold calls. And this was at my job as a sales associate, an inside sales associate. And we would get these lists and we would just call people. I learned very quickly the issue with this strategy is when people get a call they're not expecting, 1, they may not answer it. So you're running up into that issue. And then 2, when they do answer it, they're not expecting to hear from you. So they're mad about that too. So I didn't like the cold calling thing, but I still had this job where every day I had to make 110 cold calls. So here's what I did, y'all. Instead of doing what I was supposed to be doing on my job, I used what's called the Jones method of selling. The Jones method of selling. And what the Jones method of selling says is that if I sell something to Chris, and then I ask Chris after the sales call, hey, Chris, who else on your block could use this service? Who else in your community can use this service? Who else in your sphere can use this service? And Chris says, I think my buddy Tom may be interested. Then I call Tom and I say, hey, Tom, your buddy Chris said I should call you. Got a minute? Well, who is this? Well, now Tom is intrigued because Tom knows I talked to Chris and Chris is his boy. And basically, Tom is down for that because he trusts Chris. He doesn't trust me, but he trusts Chris. So the Jones method of selling, this technique, the whole premise of this technique, and I did not invent it. It's old school sales. So if any of you all have had sales jobs and been trained well, you already know about this. But the premise of the Jones method of selling is that when I sell to Chris and do a good job for Chris, I can borrow Chris's cred, his street cred with Tom, and I can use that to sell something to Tom. I at least have a better chance of actually getting Tom to listen. So that's the premise of the Jones method of selling. All right. You could do that today. Like if I'm your client and you crush it for me and you're like, hey, Ashley, who else could use really good services? And I'm like, man, I don't know. My girl, Stacy probably could use something. Let me check it out and I'll give it to you. I'll give her your number or whatever, or I'll give you her number. And here's what the best salespeople do. The best salespeople are active. They are not passive. Some of you could probably go make about $10,000, $20,000 right now, but you're too passive with it. The best salespeople that I know are active. So they'll do something like, hey, Chris, I know you want to ask him if it's okay before you give me his number, but do you mind just giving me Tom's email? I'll copy you on the email. That way you don't have to do anything, and I could just make it easier on you. Does that sound all right? Now, the way you ask questions when you sell, we're getting like so deep into this cold calling thing and this Jones method. But the way you ask questions when you sell is really critical. It's why we added a language lab to the Speaker Ready to Cash Live, because your language is literally everything. And there's so much psychology that is behind how we make decisions, what we say, what we do, that if you're not a student of it, you can easily start to miss it. You know what I mean? Like you could easily start to just feel like, oh, things aren't happening for me and I don't know why, and it's all my fault, and you start feeling bad for yourself, when really things aren't happening for you because you're going against science. You're going against how people work. There's certain principles about how people do things. There's certain principles about how people do things, what people do, that you have to understand. And here's one of them. Everyone is self-interested, period. Even people who are like the do-gooders of the world, right? The people who go and say cats and kittens, the people who go and say children, self-interested. Here's what I mean by that. When I first started volunteering, I volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club in Champaign, and I developed this whole program for the girls out there. And yeah, it was good for the community, but if I was being 100% brutally honest, and don't hold me to it, when I started volunteering, it was because I had to volunteer. Like I needed it for school or something like that. And then what happened when I started volunteering was I was like, dang, I love the way it feels to volunteer. So I kept doing it. And even though it helped other people, I kept doing it because I loved the way it felt to volunteer. And I love the way it felt to give back. And I love the way I felt when I communicated that my life had purpose beyond just serving me, even though ironically, it always comes full circle. That's kind of how it works. So we can debate about how human nature is, and no, people are inherently good, or no, people are inherently bad, but all of that is irrelevant to sales. What's relevant to sales is this. Once you understand that people are self-interested and you make everything about your sales process about the customer's self-interests, you will sell more. Listen to me. When you understand that people are self-interested and you make everything about the customer's sales process, you will sell more, okay? That's just how this works. So if you're struggling with sales and you're struggling with getting things done, then it's likely because you haven't come to terms with the idea that everyone is self-interested, which is also why, now let's go here on this self-interest thing, because we've determined the cold ways you can get clients. I've given you some sales ideas there. We've also discussed the content ways you can get clients, but let's talk about self-interest, because that's actually probably the missing link. When you understand that everyone is self-interested and you sell to their self-interests, you're going to sell more. The way that typically shows up is you using your client's language in your copy, in your sales copy, in your conversation, and everything else. Why is that so critical? I don't have the best handwriting, but hopefully you all can understand this. And if I have grammar police on here, I'm just going to kick you out. I'm just kidding. So here's the principle. People buy, let me delete this one. Buying should be their idea. Buying should be their idea. Most people don't, when you think about a car salesman, what are some words that come to mind? Drop words that come to mind when you think about a car salesman in the chat. Drop some words that come to mind. Hey, Brian, when you think about a car salesman in the chat, just drop some words that come to mind. I have one in mind, but I'm awake. Okay, I'm seeing example statement or buzzword. Buying should be their decision. Okay, sleazy, yes, that's one for sure. Okay, The reason people don't typically like going into a car dealership, doing all of that, is because it feels like they're being pushed to make a decision that's not theirs. Yeah, pushy, harassment. Oh my God, yes. No one wants to be pushed. No one wants to be harassed. No one wants to be like forced to make a decision that they don't want to make. So instead, because we all have this idea in our head of this sleazy, slimy salesperson, the integrity of the sales industry has dramatically dropped. It's like people are like, sales, oh my God, that's horrible. I don't ever want to do that. I never want to sell to anyone. That's not me. I'm not a salesperson. That's not who I am. When really buying should be their idea. You just are helping them make the buying decision. So the language that you use has to be their language. The way that you present your offer needs to include their decisions. The way that you move them through your buying process has to include what they actually want above all else. Like that's really, really, really important. So how do you make buying your customer's decision? I'm gonna give you guys some ways to do this so you can implement this today. Here's what you do. You use their language. You use their language. That's how you make up. Because here's the thing. When you are selling to a client and it feels icky, no one feels good. You don't feel good. They don't feel good. I'm not pushy. I'm not harassing. And there's a way to sell that doesn't include these things. So what you have to do is utilize your client's language. What do I mean? Use their language. This looks like, okay, Chris wants to buy, Chris is a speaker. He wants to come to Speak Your Ready Cash Live. And I'm like, Chris, what's your biggest challenge right now with speaking? I'm gonna literally show you guys how this works in real time. Babe, you can answer. What's your okay, babe, what's your biggest challenge right now with landing paid speaking engagements? Well, I would say Chris. I wouldn't call him babe.
I'm not pitching.
Okay, your biggest challenge is you're not pitching. Why aren't you pitching?
I don't feel like I'm ready.
You don't feel like you're ready to pitch.
I don't have a framework yet that I'm ready to pitch.
You don't have a framework yet that you're ready to pitch. Okay, so Chris, if you had a framework that made you feel ready to pitch, would that be helpful to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, and would you find value in that?
Yes.
If you had to put a price on it, what price would you put on that?
On getting the framework?
On getting the framework and feeling comfortable pitching.
Oh, that's difficult to say.
Okay, so is it like invaluable then?
Yeah.
Is it something you'd use for the next 10 years?
It's something I could possibly use forever.
You can use it forever. Okay, great. So it sounds like, Chris, you need a framework. You want something that's timeless, that you can use forever. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah.
Okay, and right now you're not pitching anyone. Is that right?
Correct.
And what's that costing you? What is that doing for your bottom line? The fact that you're not pitching.
It's bringing in zero and it's costing me headache.
It's bringing in zero and it's costing me headache. Okay, Chris, well, look, I don't want you to have a hurt head. Like, I don't want you going to bed at night needing to take Tylenol, and I definitely don't want you bringing in $0. So here's what I got. I have a solution that can teach you how to pitch, but we'll start off. Actually, Chris, this was not planned, by the way. Actually, Chris, we have a workshop coming up, Speak Your Ready Cash Live, and actually, let's see, the fourth module that we're going to go over at this workshop is called, and I'm literally reading this, Chris. I didn't plan for this. Building your framework and positioning your solution for profit. Now, that's one of 13 things that we're going to go over at the event. One of 13. You also talked about pitching. We have another one that's called Assembling Your Six-Figure Package with Ease. If you came to this event, learned how to get your framework together, right? And you also were able to start pitching with ease because you learned how to pitch, wouldn't you say that's worth more than $2,500?
Yes.
Okay, great. Here's what I'm gonna do for you, because I like you. You know what I'm saying? You can attend the event for $2,500. Is that something you want to do?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now listen to this, guys. Listen to this. I'm about to bless y'all with this one, okay? I did not ask Chris to buy anything yet. I asked him, listen to the way I asked the question. If I could do A, B, C, and D, wouldn't you agree that that's worth more than $2,500? Now, here's a tip I'm gonna give you from Enterprise. My guy Stan Pearson, who I did an interview with, said he worked at Enterprise. This is one thing that they taught us. You say bucks versus dollars because bucks sounds cheaper than dollars. When I say a buck, I mean like, oh, that's like $1, $2. Isn't that worth more than $2,500? Now listen to this. Isn't that worth more than $2,500? Which one sounds more expensive? Dollars, right? Here's the thing about sales, guys. It's a psychology. And the only reason I know these stuff is because I've been trained in sales by some of the largest organizations in the country and done over 20,000 sales calls. But again, the point that I want to make about this is that I never yet, not yet, asked him for money. I never asked Chris for money this whole time. What have I been doing this entire time? I'm going to walk you through this. What I've been doing this entire time is I have been getting Chris to buy into the idea that what I have to offer is valuable to him. Now, listen to this. This is a next level tip. I haven't just been getting him interested in the idea that what I have to offer is valuable to him, but that it's more valuable than the price. Did you catch that? What I asked Chris was this. I said, Chris, if I had a program that would teach you how to pitch, teach you how to sell to corporations, by the way, y'all, that's exactly what I do at Speak Your Way to Cash Live. I wanted to give y'all a taste because for some reason we still have tickets left. But and that's a good thing for y'all, right? That's a good thing for y'all. We have 10 VIP tickets left. So make sure you go and get your tickets, speakyourwaytocash.com/event. But one thing I need to point out to you is that before I ever asked Chris to pay the ticket cost, to do the thing, to give me his credit card, I asked him, wouldn't that be more valuable to you than $2,500? Now we have two ticket prices for Speak Your Way to Cash Live. One of the prices is $1,200 for a virtual ticket. The other is $2,500 for a VIP ticket. What I foreshadowed to Chris is that what I have to offer is more valuable than the highest ticket price we have to offer. That's what I just foreshadowed to him. And what did Chris say? Yes. He said it is worth more to him than the money. Now, what does this do? This takes the money conversation off the table. So now we're not dealing with it not being valuable. Now we just have to figure out whether Chris has the $2,500 to run me my money for what I'm going to give him, which is worth way more. When you're selling to people and you're selling your services, the reason why it's not converting sometimes is because the way that you're presenting the offer or the package, you're selling the value on the back end. Chris, you're selling the value on the back end. So you all are talking about the price first, but you haven't gotten them to agree that what you have to offer is more valuable than the price that you're setting. And that's critical. The other thing I want you all to point out, I asked Chris, would he be interested in the offer? Would he be interested in attending? I didn't ask him, was he going to attend? Was he available that day? Was he going to be interested in attending? So here's what we're doing. When you have sales calls with people specifically, or you're DMing people about a particular offer that they have interest in, they have a need that you can solve. And by the way, we're teaching sales at Speak Your Way to Cash Live. So when you're doing that and you're trying to sell them something and you're going back and forth with them, the most critical piece of the conversation is this piece. It's the piece where you tell them or you ask them whether what you have to offer is more valuable than the price that you've set for it. You want to get buy-in on that. And then two, whether or not they're interested in the offer. Not can they afford it, not are they going to buy it today. You got to do all this before you ask for the ultimate, because when you ask for the ultimate, it should be a no-brainer. Now, let's say Chris were to say, I want to attend, but I don't have the money, right? Let's say he's like, I want to attend, but I don't have the money. That's what Chris says. Man, Chris, all right. So Chris, you told me that this is something that you're interested in. You told me it is valuable to you. Are you in a position to get your ticket today if I were to send you the link right now?
No.
Okay. Well, we've already talked about the value, so tell me a little bit more about why you're not in a position to take advantage of this today.
I have some other obligations. It's not that it's not valuable, but I have some things that are more important right now. So
Okay.
cash strapped.
Okay, I totally understand that. And you know what, Chris? We have a lot of clients that have dealt with the exact same thing. Different things happen, still in a pandemic. And so what we did, because I don't want you to miss this opportunity, specifically because after next week, that price goes way up, and I don't want you to deal with that. So here's what I'll do. We have a new financing partner. And with this financing partner, it'll let you attend the event now, but pay for it later over, a period of time. And I think some people can push it out 64 months, get a payment of less than, I don't know, $100 a month, $200 a month, something like that. You'd have to go through all the details. All I need to know now is, would you be interested in looking at that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. I'm going to send it over to you. It's a quick application, less than a minute. Do me a favor, apply today. That work for you?
Sure.
Okay. Here's what I need you all to understand about sales. And it may not always go that smoothly. Somebody may say, no, I don't want to do that because that's a credit application, blah, 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 blah. If he were to be like that, or he were to be offended by the offer or offended by the solution, then we stop. We don't then say, come on, Chris, give me your mortgage, give me your rent payment. Them kids don't need new shoes. No, we stop. The truth is, when you're selling and when you walk your client through your value and you walk them through what you provide for them and you walk them through why your solution can solve the headaches that he's having, the $0 in the bank account, when you walk them through all of that, you're just making them offers. You're just making them you're giving them a way to get out of the situation they're in and get into a better position in life. Here's what I would ask you guys. And also, side note, that's true. We literally have a financing partner. It's like a 1-minute application and it's like, you could do that. So DM me if y'all are like, wait, is that really a thing? Yes, it's a thing. DM me, please. Thank you. One of the things I want you all to understand is, like, when you're selling to someone and you give them different options to pay, etc., the way you formulate your questions is critical. The way you approach them is really important, and it needs to be their idea and their language. Now, check this out. Speak Your Way to Cash Live has 13 sessions, but Chris said his big issue is pitching and framework. So I don't need to overwhelm Chris with all 13 sessions. He already told me if he just learned how to pitch and he just learned how to develop a framework, it's worth more than the highest ticket cost for him. So I'm going to hone in on the things that matter most to him. Because when I'm talking to Chris, it's the Chris show. If I'm talking to, who's on here? I'm talking to Gigi, it's the Gigi show. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you find valuable is what I'm going to highlight in the offer. And you know what else really gets people tweaking when they sell? And I've listened to some sales calls. The rambling. The like, hey, how are you doing today? And then like immediately people just go into like, hey, I know you're going to know my time. And I'm going to tell you, like they become those auction block people. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't even hear what you're saying. Don't do that, y'all. Like, that's the worst, okay? Like, do not get on an auction block. Going once, going twice. Got my services number 1. Like, do not do that. Take your time. And you know what helps with that? At the very beginning of your sales call, I'm giving y'all the goods because y'all showed out on my last IG post. What helps with that is you setting the intention of the call up front so that it's at your pace. So, hey, Chris, my name's Ashley. Looks like we have some time scheduled to speak. Look, I don't plan to take more than 15 minutes of your time. Do you have that? If Chris says he has it, then great. I can take a deep breath and go slower. If he says he doesn't have it, then I'm going to schedule a better time for him. Because it's the Chris show. He's the client. It's client-centric. It's his show. You know what I mean? And the other thing is, I want to take the time to get to know who he is if he's signing on to a higher level package, or in this case, coming to an event, because we curate our spaces at Speak Your Way to Cash Live. We literally refunded people being like, oh, no. You will not be in the room. You know what I mean? Like, not to be rude, not to be mean, but because to me, environment is everything. And if I'm going to spend 3 days with you and I'm going to let other people who've paid and invested and saved up their money to be there to spend 3 days with you as well, everything's going to be in alignment. Like, you're the type of person who we want to have in the room. So, you don't have to work with people, but you are in a position of power as the salesperson because you provide the solution. You provide the solution. That means you don't have to rush. It means you don't have to, if they don't want the solution, you don't have to get upset. You don't have to get down on yourself. You can move on. Why? Because you tried to give them a gift and they rejected it. And I wholeheartedly believe it. I don't sell anything that I don't think is a gift, and you should not either. And let me tell you something else. Just because people have said they don't want your gift, they're not going to accept your gift, they're not going to pay you for your gift, does not devalue your gift. It is still a gift. It is still a service that will change someone else's life. And if you believe that, you have to sell it, because selling is an act of service at that point. Let me repeat that. If you are selling a service or something that will change someone else's life, you have to sell it. At that point, selling is an act of service. Period. I have literally seen people's lives change from working with me on the speaking coaching side. It is an act of service. If I'm inviting you to work with me, that is a gift. Period. I 120 million%, if that's even a word. Probably, that's not even a number, but I believe that. Yes, Michelle. Right. And Michelle's a client. So yes, I believe that. So you all have to sell as an act of service. I want you to understand how to sell, because that's really important. Now, look, we didn't even get through a 10th of what I wanted to get through today. Okay. Chris is like, you're giving away too much of the secret sauce. He let me get all excited. He didn't set it all up and get all the things. Here's what I want you to do. Most of you watching already have your tickets to Speak Your Way to Cash Live. There are some of you who do not. I am going to invite you to get this gift of Speak Your Way to Cash Live, where I will be doing 3 days of this. And we'll have time to do things like hot seats and Q&As, and you'll have time to mastermind with the other members, etc. So make sure you get your tickets. SpeakYourWayToCash.com/event. And if you want financing, DM me or send Chris an email, and we will make sure that you get all those options available to you, because you don't have time, you don't have long. And next week, Monday, is Monday the 20th? Monday, we're gearing up for our pre-event prospecting party, where I'm going to share my screen and actually send some sales pitches live to real clients on Zoom, which I've never done before. It's an event of firsts, okay? So you want to make sure that you're in the room. You don't have time to waste. Like, this is stuff that you need. If you're in business, you run a for-profit business or a nonprofit business, you have to understand foundational elements of selling. And it is not just about what you see. It's about how people feel. It's about how people engage. It's about how they interact. It's about how they respond to certain language. And if you don't know that, you're always going to be playing behind the 8 ball in your copy and in everything else, because sales seeps through your sales. It seeps through your Instagram posts and everything else that you do. So if you're someone who's like, I don't see myself as a salesperson, you need to be a Speak Your Way to Cash Live, because sales is a huge piece of what we're talking about. So go get your tickets there. The other thing you all can do, if you enjoyed this and you're like, whoo, I want to give an offering, or I get messages like, let me cash app you. Don't cash app me. Do something else better. Go to AshleyNicoleKirkwood.shop and buy, pre-order Speak Your Way to Cash. You can also go on Amazon and pre-order. However you want to do it, you can do it. And we have an audiobook that'll be available for pre-order soon as well. But you can go to my shop, pre-order. The links are all posted in my bio or on Facebook. You can do that today to show me that you appreciate this pop-up sales class. We didn't even get through, we haven't even touched the iceberg of selling, all right? Now, before I go, because Chris is like wrapping me, before I go, do you have any questions? Any questions at all about selling, about the event, about increasing your proficiency as a sales professional? I'm not a salesperson. Yes, you are, girl. Here's the other thing. Everybody really is a salesperson. I mean, it's the power of persuasion. When we want something bad enough, we will persuade someone. And your services, you want people to have them because they really are valuable and they can help them. If you're, selling stuff you know about. All right. Okay. So I don't see any questions. I don't see any questions in the IG question box. And I don't see any questions on Facebook. Do you see any questions, Chris? Okay, no? Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. This was really good. If you like it, share it. Make sure other people have access to this really good information that is actionable. And what I'm going to tell you to do, I want to give you one thing that's actionable that you can literally do today. Send someone a message that has already reached out about services but decided not to buy. Check in on where they're at in the process. Following up is where you lose a lot of money. If you're not following up, we follow up with 10 to 12 people every week who previously worked with us or inquired about services. We now have someone on our team who does it. But please follow up with at least one person who is interested or who said they were interested in working with you. At least one person. All right. Do that for me today. Let me know how that goes. I'll talk to y'all later.